If you were to simply use operators for your Excel formulas, you would be limited to what you could do. Luckily, Excel has worksheet functions that perform calculations that would be very difficult, if not impossible, to perform. Worksheet functions greatly simplify calculations for you, allowing you to perform more powerful formulas in an efficient manner. Here we show a formula which uses operators, and then we perform the same formula using a function. In cell P1, we added up all the values in cells A1 through O1. This was very time consuming as we had to manually click on each cell and enter in the addition operator. This would have been much easier if we would have just used the sum formula. Here in cell P1 we use the sum formula, which is equals SUM and then in parentheses A1 through O1, or cell range A1 through O1. This was much more efficient than manually using the operators as we did before. Here's an example of us calculating the average of the values entered into cells A1 through I1 using the operators and not the function. Now we'll perform the same calculation, except we use the average formula by entering in equals average and then as our argument A1 through cell I1 and cell J1. This is much cleaner, easier, and error-free way of performing the same calculation. Excel also offers functions that can eliminate manual editing that would otherwise take hours. An example of this is the proper function. The proper function converts content such as names and titles to their proper case structure. For example, here I'm entering in William T. Workman, all in lowercase letters. Now in the cell next to it, I'll enter in equals proper, and then in parentheses I'll refer to the cell containing the name. When I hit enter, the result will be the same name but with capitalized letters. I could also enter in a title of the book, and as you can see, I'm entering in a mix of uppercase and lowercase letters. If I refer to this cell, the result of the proper function will give me capital letters on the first of every word, the first letter of every word. There are also functions that allow you to perform calculations that would not be available using only the operators. An example of this is the max function. The max function detects the largest value in a range of cells. Another type of formula that Excel offers is the if function, which is a decision-making formula. The if function basically says if this happens, then this is the result. And if that happens, then that is the result. The if function has three main arguments. The first argument is the logical test. The second argument is the value if true. And the third and final argument is the value if false. Here I'm providing you with an example of the if function. In cell A2, I'm entering in a monthly income of $4,001. And then in cell A2, I'm going to enter in an if function. The if function is going to refer to either cell A5 or cell B5 for its result, depending on the test. So here I'm entering in equals if, and then in parentheses, I'm going to enter first our test, which is cell A2 is greater than 4,000. And then I'll enter a comma, and the value of true will be the content within cell A5, and the value of false will be the content within cell B5. I'll close my parentheses, hit enter, and since our income is $4,001, the result will be the content within cell A5. Excel function arguments. One thing that all Excel worksheet functions have in common is that they use parentheses. The information that is listed inside the parentheses is known as the list of arguments. Different functions use different types of arguments. The types of arguments Excel functions use are no argument, a fixed set of arguments, an indefinite number of arguments, a single argument, or an optional argument. An example of a function that doesn't use an argument is the today function. The today function still requires a set of parentheses, but you simply don't enter any information inside the parentheses, meaning there is no argument. If you were to enter in the today function into a cell, you would do so by entering in equals today and then open and close parentheses, and the result would be today's date. A function that uses a fixed set of arguments would be the quotient argument, or quotient formula. When you enter the quotient formula into a cell, then open the parentheses, Excel will display a small information box describing how to enter in your arguments into the parentheses. For the quotient formula, Excel requires a fixed set of two arguments, the numerator and the denominator. An example of a formula that uses an indefinite number of arguments would be the product formula. The product formula finds the product of all the arguments by multiplying them together. You can enter as many arguments as you want, but you just need to make sure that each argument is separated by a comma. The absolute function is an example of a single argument function. In Excel, the absolute function is abbreviated with ABS. So you would enter in equals ABS into a cell, and then in the parentheses, you would enter your argument, which is a single number or a cell which contains a number. If we entered in equals ABS and then in parentheses negative 247, the function would calculate and return the absolute value of negative 247, which is 247. Types of arguments in Excel. Arguments in Excel can consist of cell references, literal values, literal text strings, expressions, or other functions. An example of cell reference would be equals product, and then in parentheses cells, I'd refer to cells A1 through A15. An example of a literal value would be if I were to enter in the absolute formula equals ABS, and then in parentheses negative 247. Negative 247 is a literal value. A literal text string would be, an example would be the equals proper, and then in parentheses and quotations, this is the title of a book. The argument is a literal text string. An expression would be if I were to enter in equals SQRT, standing for square root, and then in parentheses 15 plus 10. 15 plus 10 is an expression. And then I can also enter in other functions as arguments. For example, if I were to enter in equals the square root function, and then in parentheses I were to enter in the product formula.